On today's episode of the Hustle the Day podcast, I have Dai Manuel. Dai has lived the digital nomad lifestyle over the last 2.5 years in Bali, and he has a crazy awesome story of overcoming his demons and now helping others facilitate change. Take a listen. You're not going to want to miss this one. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Hustle the Day podcast. I am Trent, and I am very fortunate and blessed to have Dai Manuel here with us today. You heard his little intro. I want you to jump in now, Dai, and tell us a little more in depth about yourself.
When I always find it funny because, when we're sort of conditioned, hey, what do you do? Rather than who are you? Why are you that way? And I know there's room to answer that, but we have a limited amount of time. So to get right to the point, I'm self-acclaimed, and this has been validated by my kids, but I like to use the title Super Dad. My two daughters are now 14 and 16, so they're little people, and they're definitely that's the best title I've ever had is dad. I've also been dating my wife, going on almost 20 years now, and that's been fantastic. Unfortunately, she's my best friend, my biggest cheerleader, and also my most constructive critic. And she's really helped me stay the path of just that constant idea of improving. That Kaizen principle is certainly alive and well in our relationship. But if it had to boil it down to it, I'm a facilitator of change. I really like to help people feel empowered that, they can actually make the changes that they want. And it's not a matter of thinking about something 5 years down the road or 2 or 1 or 10. Change happens immediately. It happens the moment you make a choice and start to do things a little bit differently. Of course, the outcome and the results, they come at different intervals. It's not like it happens immediately that you have the result that you want, but if you consistently do things a little bit different than you've done, you can usually expect different results than you've already acquired. And so that's what I do. I help people do that in lots of different ways. And that's really me in a nutshell. I know it's kind of vague, but I know it'll naturally come out in our conversation a little bit more about what I do and how I do it.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I love that you say that your greatest title is being a super dad, and the father of 3 kids. Dad definitely is the greatest title that you can have. I mean, it's amazing what they do for your life. So.
And it's pretty cool because you think about it. How many people call you dad? Yeah, you've got 3. I've got 2, and it's not a title everybody uses, and it's pretty special. It's pretty special.
Absolutely. My 4-year-old just yesterday decided she wanted to call me by my first name. It's like, no, I'm your dad. Like, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say no way. I couldn't even handle that. I don't even know what I'd do if my kids started calling me by my first name. I'd be weird. 4, that's just cheeky.
Yeah.
That's so good.
But I like that you said you're a facilitator of change. That's also, we've had conversations before prior to this, and so I get that term, and it's not unwarranted. It's true, but we'll jump into that a little bit in a little bit about more of exactly what you do. But
sounds good.
I want to ask you, who was most influential on who you became today?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's such a good question because we talk about change and we talk about evolution. If we just look at how evolution happens, we deal with stress, right? There's lots of different types of stresses, and we either cave, run away, or we embrace the challenge of the stress. And it comes in lots of different ways, right? We have psychological, physical, and emotional, even spiritual stresses. And when we're under those stresses, we change. We have to. We change in so many different ways, right down to the science, that physiologically we change as well.
Right.
But we change because we've adapted and we've evolved. And now we've, in essence, become somebody new. We have a new way to look at the world, a new way of understanding the world, understanding ourselves and our role in the world. And even our relationships shifted a little bit. And I think it was Dickens that talked about this idea of, especially, and this is very relevant to entrepreneurs and people that are in that business of creation. You have to be willing to create. You have to be willing to change but you have to be willing to kill the person you were, because that's a given. So when you come out after a change, you're somebody new, and I love that idea, right? So if you're asking me, who's been most influential in my life, there's been different moments where I've had different changes based on big challenges that I've had the opportunity to work through, and have somebody there to either help or just simply support. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just having the support. And I think back to my parents, like they were very supportive. I was morbidly obese as a teenager. And, for about 5 years of my life, from age 9 to 14, I lived in a state of unhealth where, asthma, sore joints, sore back, I could barely tie up my own shoes. All the cliches that come with somebody that overweight, I was living. And I have a lot of empathy for people that are like that or finding themselves in that state of unhealth. It's not a pleasant place to be. And, at age 15, I made some shifts. I made some big, big changes. Some of them were fear-based. I was very fearful of death, and I had ideas of suicide, but the fear of dying and the finality, it scared me way more than the idea of, maybe if I just actually learned how to exercise and started to eat differently, maybe I could get different results. I could actually see myself shift. That idea of change didn't seem as demanding as the idea of finality, of saying goodbye, and that fear. There's a saying, when the pain of change, or of not changing, I should say, the pain of not changing outweighs the pain of actually changing. Right. You're ready to make a change. And so I worked through that. It took about 20 months to realize the full transformation. But my parents supported me so much. They were cheerleaders. They were very complimentary. They provided me what I needed to facilitate that. So that was my first really big transformation. It also got me really excited about coaching and mentorship, because after the change, all these people started asking me, "Hey, Dai, how'd you do that? How do you eat? How do you work out? Like, what are you doing?" Like my parents' friends, especially, mm-hmm. These people that were in their 30s and 40s were asking me all these questions, and I got to provide them with a lot of the knowledge and the wisdom that I had gained going through the transformation. And so that was really the first big one, and then I moved across Canada from Toronto to Vancouver, and I had a number of different people that I'd met that I was really impressed by, that I thought were really amazing. And I met one gentleman. I started working for him at a company selling fitness equipment. And I was finishing up my degrees at university. And so this is sort of the part-time gig. And I love fitness, and I love that idea of helping people feel empowered that they too could start to get a little healthier, a little fitter, and just get more excited about their own life and the way they show up. And so I had a real knack for it, because it was commission-based, which is performance-based, and I was like, wow, the more passionate I bring to this, and the more people I impact and help, the more money I make. I'm like, oh, this is a really good deal. Yeah. And part-time, I was making more than my buddies making, full-time incomes. And I just was like, man, this is really cool. I like this. And then when the opportunity came, I went on full-time and advanced very quickly. And, I'll make the long story short, he really mentored me, the owner of that company, and took me under his wing. He was 20 years my senior. He saw a lot of himself in me, and he saw the passion I had, the excitement, and the willingness to just fully submit myself to a process and learn as much as I could to get better. And he provided that. And, we worked together for 17 years. 17 years I worked with him. And we eventually evolved into a relationship where we became partners for a new company. And we grew that to 8 figures a year. And, it was really just an amazing journey. I learned a lot. There's no ill feeling or misgivings there. I got to a different point in life, 5 years ago. And I was like, I really did enjoy that path. I would say I loved it. But I got to a point where I was like, okay, he's 20 years my senior. I'm getting on to nearly 40, and he's almost 60. I know he has aspirations to sort of step away from the business. He wants me to step in and fully own it, and be that CEO and start to run it. And I was like, you know what? I don't want his life. And that was a hard realization, because I've been doing it for 17 years. I'd go as far as say I sacrificed on a lot of things. My kids' early childhood. I was hustling a lot. Yeah. And there was a lot of justifications, because we were building something, and this was for them. They're using that. This is for you guys. This is why. Don't worry. We'll have more time later. But Daddy's got to do this, and even with my wife, like I compromise certain things, and I know that happens. We say we don't want to do that, but it happens. And just got to a point I was just like, you know what, I want to do some different things. And since that, I've had some coaches, that helped with some of that ideas of moving into a different field, which I'd been dabbling in. I started creating content online about 12 years ago after I read Gary Vaynerchuk's Crush It, the first edition. I was totally dating myself here, but the first one, and I had a first printing of that book, and it changed everything for me. Everything. The way I looked at marketing, the way I looked at attraction marketing and service-based, value-based leverage of social media, right? And so it became just part of what I did. And then so that provided some opportunities when I wanted to make the transition. There were some options, But those are the most impactful people when I think about some of the biggest shifts in my life, and then there's been communities. And I look at communities as being sort of mentors as well. And Toastmasters is one of those organizations. I have men's groups that I've been a part of, and I now run myself. I facilitate, and that's been massive for me. I think a lot of us as men, and sorry, not to be generalized, but I'll finish at this point so we can move on because I know it starts to get on. But, as a man, as someone that is, and I still am, very competitive. I used to have a lot of issues with entrusting men. I'd always see them as competition. I would always be, never fully transparent. Never fully authentic. I found there was always a little bit of a, internal pushback. And this is all on me. I'm not saying it was their fault. This is just how I was, a little bit fearful of being fully honest and fear of judgment and everything else. Right. And so when I started getting around some really amazing men and opening up the space for us to be vulnerable, to share sort of what's real for us, what we're dealing with, some of the struggles, all of a sudden I realized, we're all the same. We're all struggling with the same stuff, just different shades. And this did a couple things. One, it helped me really align with amazing men and be myself, truly be myself, and not have fear of judgment. But it also allowed me to understand myself a lot more and realize that, I'm not so alone. And there is power in vulnerability, Absolutely. So, man, I swear every day I meet somebody neat that impacts me, whether I read a great book, listen to a podcast like your own. I think mentorship and coaching and guidance comes in so many different mediums today. We have so much access, so much access. And it's just, what do you take from those lessons?
Absolutely. That's fantastic. I loved all that. And, hearing those people that are impactful on you and, where it led you to. And like you mentioned, you had a 17-year career, and 5 years ago you made a radical shift, and you are now based out of Bali rather than
Bali.
Canada,
Yes, that's right. Yes. And I'm back and forth right now. And I'll be back in Vancouver again shortly. But it's a nice place to ping pong between, Vancouver and Bali. I got no complaints. And that was a choice we made. And we can talk a bit more about Bali in a bit. But it's if anybody wants to come on over, coconuts on me. Just tell me when you're coming, Seriously, it's a pretty amazing place.
Amazing place. Yeah, absolutely. But as we talked last time, it's a 28-hour plane flight for me. So
for you, that's right.
Yeah, it's a bit of a commute.
I always joke about that. I keynote at a number of events, and majority are in North America. And I'm always like, okay, who had to travel the farthest to get here? Because I had a 24-hour commute. I know I got this one. But it's nice to look at it as a commute. We are fortunate that, think about it. The longest place to get to, 2 days? Maybe, if you got to go to someplace really remote.
Right.
That's pretty empowering, knowing that you can get anywhere. Just a little bit of time, but you can get anywhere. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Even though the world is massive, it's actually pretty small at the same time, right?
Yeah. we have the means. Like you can just pick up and go somewhere. Like, geesh, it's pretty neat. Like, wow. I didn't really appreciate that when I was younger, but now I do. I do.
Absolutely. So you have this career, you decide to make this last massive change. Is that when you decide, hey, I need to be an entrepreneur to facilitate this lifestyle, or how is it that you kind of became your own boss?
Well, anybody that's an entrepreneur, I maintain that we're sort of, I don't know when it happens. Maybe we're born with it. I'm not 100% sure. But there's, once you start working for yourself and you start creating in that capacity, it's pretty hard to go back to anything else, and I think that was the thing that I learned from my parents, especially my dad. My dad's an entrepreneur, and my mom always had a side hustle. Always. She still does. She's like in her mid-70s. She still got side hustles, Like awesome. I love it. I know. It's pretty cool, whether an antique dealer, while running an Airbnb, like there's always something that she had on the go. And my dad just built a practice, a veterinary practice. And so he worked for himself from the time he graduated university with his degree to the time when he exited that and finally retired, he was running his own thing. So I got to grow up around that, and it really provided me with a really rock solid work ethic. And because I always saw my parents, very professional, but also very kind, and which makes it's really neat because you have the ability to impact others, especially whether you want in big ways or small ways or whatever. It's really how you show up and how you command yourself to be in those roles, and especially when you're a leader of an organization. And so when I look at all the jobs I've ever had, the career paths that I've had up until when I got into the equipment, and then that was my longest run, obviously 17 years, I always treated my positions as if I owned it. Always, I just always wanted to get better. I just can't settle. I can't stay still, this idea of, okay, I made it. We never make it. I mean, come on. There's always room to improve. There's always opportunity to impact more people. I mean, it's just such a dynamic field, truly dynamic and always changing. And so I always embraced that. And when I had the opportunity to start working truly as a partner and an owner and facilitate, a large company, I loved it. I really did enjoy it. Just based on what we were creating was a lot of fun. And so I'm obviously transitioning away from that. It wasn't so much away, it was just now in a different form. It was actually going back to just working by myself again, where before that, we scaled to about 100 employees, it's very different to then all of a sudden go back to just me,
for sure.
Running my own thing, and both empowering, but also a bit lonely. And I know, with the entrepreneurs that I meet and connect with, especially the nomadic community that tend to travel a lot, and laptop lifestyle, it's the biggest negative on laptop lifestyle is it can be very lonely at times.
Absolutely.
Like it's amazing. We think these devices keep us so connected, and sure they can, but there's a different type of connection you have in person when you connect with people one-on-one or in small groups or even in groups and organizations. In person, there's a difference. There is a difference.
Yeah. One thing that you said that really stuck out to me, though, is you want to impact people. You want to be impactful to people. And I think really entrepreneurship comes down to that a lot of the time is people want to make a difference. And yes, there are great companies and organizations where you can do that, but most often the best way to do that is through entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. It's pretty cool. Like I really love it. I think it's whatever you bring to it. It's not for the faint of heart, as cliche as it sounds. It's true. It can be very demanding at times, and man, the lows are low, but the highs are, man, nothing beats it. It's very, it's a lot of fun. It takes a certain perspective to be able to see the fun. You have to be very patient. but it's great. Like I really encourage everyone to at least find the entrepreneur in them, because there's certain qualities of entrepreneurs. Every entrepreneur I've ever met, there's certain qualities everybody has. And I think they're qualities that everyone has. And it's like tapping into that inner entrepreneur in all of us, right? And because if anything, it helps you just be more present even in your career, and
For sure.
more of it, and find the passion in what you do, especially when you know the self-worth and the value that you gain just by showing up and doing your best.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah, I've interviewed a couple of people who are, termed entrepreneurs. So they are people who are plan to work at a company, but they want to elevate themselves within that company. So I mean, it's a great for that type of person that isn't necessarily born with that entrepreneurial spirit, but they have that, they've tapped into it, as you say, but they are using it to their advantage with where they're at.
Super cool. I hadn't heard that term, but that sounds great. It sounds like I should just use that term instead of trying to explain myself. So. I didn't know there was a word, but it sounds like there is. So this is good to know. I just learned something. Thank you.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, super cool.
So you've been on this entrepreneurship journey for a little bit. What would you say has been your biggest failure in that, and what have you learned from that?
Well, what's really interesting. So I spoke at an event, I guess maybe about a year and a bit ago, and it's I don't know. It's called F Up Nights, but F meaning that word.
Okay.
They're all over the world. It's F Up Nights, and they invite usually entrepreneurs to come and share their biggest F ups. And it was different because a lot of people that have ever done it, they are always talking about their professional F ups. These big sort of catastrophic mistakes that they've made, or just really mistakes that forever changed them. And after living through them, that is. And, I've had some of those, but they all pale in comparison to my personal mistakes I've made, because it's actually in reflecting and those personal mistakes impacted my business a lot, my relationships in my business, my the way I showed up, the way I was running the business, like it affected everything, based on my position in the company. Making those big mistakes had a drastic effect on the bottom line.
Yeah.
And so did I learn from those? Well, yeah. And I'll just, okay, I'm going to share it. What the hell? It will be next month, 10 years since I've had a drink.
Wow.
10 years.
Congratulations.
10 years. Yeah. Thank you. I'm amazed it's been 10 years. Like, it goes by so fast, especially when you're not drinking. It's like, I hinted that Toastmasters played a big role in my life, and because I grew up always being reminded that I was shy, and so I found it really hard to connect with people, especially new people. I found it really hard to be in social environments when I didn't know anybody. From the outside looking in, I guess shy was the best label that could be attached, and I remember from an early age, that was sort of the label I got. And I think it plays into when I was morbidly obese. I was very withdrawn, because I was very self-conscious and just, sure, we'll just say I became that. And so I would often act that out. And when I was a late teen, and then especially in my early 20s, I realized that, wow, if I have a couple drinks, I don't feel so anxious when I'm around new people. I can open up a lot easier. I can even facilitate conversations and be this person that starts the conversation. Whoa, and you can imagine when, as I'm growing my company and having to do more social things and be in bigger environments and conferences and all the other usual stuff and networking, you end up having a few more drinks than you probably expected to. At least I did. And it became a pattern. It's how I used to deal with my stress and my anxiety, was alcohol, self-medicate. And it was just a pattern. I'm not a fan of the term addiction. I do understand that it's a label that suits certain types of behaviors and habits. It was the idea of the 12-step program just didn't resonate with me. I never felt that I was powerless against alcohol,
Okay.
But I do know that I always was conscious of my decision, and I could justify my decision. And it happened that, years and years of this, of making a lot of mistakes and blaming alcohol, like not showing up at home till the next morning. And that happened a lot. Or often alcohol consumption would lead to drug use, and that drug use would also sometimes lead to promiscuity. And I'm not proud of that. I was not a very good man. Some people call this cognitive dissonance. We have this idea of who we are. We have these certain core values. We have these certain beliefs about who we are and who we want to be and how we want to be showing up in the world. And then we actually have how we act. The further these two poles are apart from one another, the greater amount of stress and anxiety and discontent and unhappiness. You just create this vacuum that sucks all that in, and we tend to fill it with stuff. We buy more things. We do things to distract ourselves, to really shield ourselves from admitting that we're hurting. And so over years and years of just these constant disappointments, not only with myself, but I felt the disappointments from those that were closest to me, because I wasn't living up to the person that they know I should be. Because I didn't deep down believe I could. And so why bother? And it was almost 10 years ago to the day that I had an all-night bender, went off. And I remember waking up on our Berber carpet the next morning, and I have no recollection how I got there. It was mid-morning. The family was up. I could hear them downstairs. I could hear my kids watching Dora the Explorer. Hopefully your kids haven't gotten into that one yet, because it is that tune gets in your head and it never leaves. I'll save you guys the misery. You can YouTube it, Dora the Explorer, but be warned, once you have that jingle in your head, it never leaves.
I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Trent. I'm sorry, man. We should have talked sooner. But my kids were watching Dora the Explorer on the couch. They were 4 and 6 at the time, and Christy was unloading the dishwasher super aggressively. Every dish was clanging and the countertop was banging, and it was just, she was letting me know she was not happy.
Yeah.
It was like, she was not happy because, to be honest, Trent, there's so many times before that I was like, oh, I'll never let that happen again. Geez, I'll never drink like that again. Don't worry, baby. I won't do that again. And I said that, I lost count. I have no idea how many times I must have said that to her. And yet never followed through on it, right? And my wife, just qualify a little bit here, she's a tinge of ginge, so she's a full-on fiery redhead, and she's got a personality to match, and she is the biggest heart on the planet and the biggest supporter and cheerleader, and brings the best out of every single person, because she'll help you know and see and feel the best in you, and so she's got a really special talent there, and so she sat me down. She wasn't her usual self. I could tell that the way I looked in her eyes right now was very different than she'd ever seen me before. And, when your partner says, hey, listen, we got to talk, can you sit down right now? This isn't good.
Right.
It's not good. It's like the boss, right? The boss says, hey, we have to have a talk. We all go there. We're like, oh no, what did I do? Right. And I had no question of what I did. Right. It's like, I know what I did. And so she sat me down, and we had a conversation. And the gist of the conversation was her and the kids were not going to stick around anymore. She's going to take them away. And, she had every right to do that. And, the conversation evolved, and obviously a lot of tears were shed, especially for myself, and a lot of pleading. And it got to a point though where she asked me a question, and this is the power of questions, right? it's like, who's asking you? Are you asking yourself the tough questions? Where the tough questions where you really have to search for an answer and feel the answer, and you know that the answer, very often we know what the answer is, but we've avoided it, the question, because we didn't want to face up to it. And she asked me, are you being the type of man that you would want to marry your daughters?
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird just hearing that. Are you being the type of man that you'd want to marry your daughters? Because at that moment, I started thinking about it, like really thinking about it and envisioning, okay, well, man, if someone like me in my current condition with my current habits and behaviors showed up to date my daughters or to marry my daughters, there's no way I'd let them in the door. Right? There's no freaking way, And meanwhile, that's how I was showing up. That's how I was living. That was the role model that they were getting to watch. And at that moment, I remember asking the family to sit down on the couch and made a commitment to them I wasn't going to drink for a year. And it was just a year. I was just like, I'm not going to drink for a year. And my kids, they're like, hey, no, what about water? And what about pop? and what about this and that and coffee? And so we got to the point, no, Daddy, you won't have any more adult drinks for a year, So it started as a commitment that way, but this time I made it for myself as well, just to show that I don't need the alcohol, there's got to be other ways to deal with some of the stuff, and that 1 year turned into 10 just because a lifestyle emerged, because it also put me in a position where I had to face up to some of the other challenges and pains that I had, which included, just a lot of the issues I was carrying along, some trauma from when I was a morbidly obese teen, and this desire to feel wanted, this desire to feel okay enough to be who I am, especially in public settings where people don't know me, and so I got a psychologist. I started to I worked with a counselor. I did about 6 months of deep work and came out the other side with a better understanding of who I am and what I need and how I'm working and where the bad patterns emerge from. And everything changed. Everything. Like my company. Okay, so this is, sorry, we're going to close the loop on this question.
Yeah.
You asked me, sort of the biggest mistake. I used to be the guy that would take my staff out and say, great work. And we'd all just get hammered because I'd be the one keep buying the drinks. Mm-hmm. I used that as an excuse for me to drink and be who I was and act like that. They already knew who I was. It didn't matter. But all of a sudden, there was this expectation now around me. We go out. This is what we do. We party. We work hard. We party harder. Like this idea and culture was emanating because of me. Mm-hmm. And then I made that commitment to shift. I really got clear on my health and the things that I wanted, things that really mattered, those core values. And I started to align my decisions, my choices, my actions to those. And what was really, really cool, it got to a point where a bunch of the people I worked with also stopped drinking.
Oh, wow.
They shifted their lifestyles. Because now it wasn't the thing. It was not, I wouldn't be the guy instigating and getting everybody fired up. And, they used to call me Billy White Shoes, because I'd have these white shoes and, I go to conferences and everybody knew, I'd be working the conference, but everybody was like, well, are you going tonight? Because they'd want to be there. They want to party. And that was my reputation.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is not right. This is not what I want to be known for, And so for a couple of years, everything shifted. Everything changed. And because I made one choice, I decided that, no, I wanted to be the man, especially for my family, of who they saw in me. I want to start being that. And but finally, I chose because I wanted it, right? Because, how it goes. People that love us, they're going to tell us all the time, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Maybe you should do things differently. But until we're ready to accept it and say, okay, I'm going to make a change, making a change doesn't necessarily happen because no one's going to do the work for us, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that is really it. The biggest thing that I learned from was, as a leader in your organization, everybody's watching you. Mm-hmm. And you set the tone. You create the culture. and
Absolutely.
maybe you don't sustain it. You're a part of it, but you set the culture, the beginnings of the culture. And that's the nice thing as entrepreneurs. We have a lot of ability to have massive influence and create a great impact, whether negative or positive. We have the equal opportunity. And so that was the biggest learning that I had. And it's shifted into everything I do now.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just rock solid on my core values. I know what they are. I every day I live into them.
That's very cool. I appreciate you being open and honest and vulnerable and, sharing that. I really appreciate you doing that.
Thanks,
and I definitely identify with the shy aspect, like you talked about. I've been shy and introverted my whole life, and until I was 34 years old, which is how old I am now.
Okay.
I realized that that's a label that was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so it's definitely made big strides in changing that over the last few months. But, it's a journey. We're all on a journey. And like you've mentioned, change is, change is a constant. So.
That's right. Yes, that's right. It's so true. And well, good for you for challenging it. That's what Toastmasters provided me, because, all of a sudden I stopped drinking, and I was like, okay, well, I can't just not be social. I got to figure out a way around this. And, Toastmasters is there to help you be a more effective communicator, public speaker, storyteller. Like, all eyes are on you. You are talking, and it's like you got the mic, so go. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. This scares me. And I just started going. I kept going back. And, sure enough, I still, every time I speak, trust me, I get all the same sort of physical responses that we get. Palms start to sweat a little bit, heart rate starts to race, eyes get a little dilated, get a little bit nervous, get some adrenaline going. But you learn how to channel that in a positive way.
Yeah.
You learn how to use that energy and create something amazing. And that comes with practice and also a community to support you through that. And so I highly recommend it. If there's ever one organization that I speak to everyone about, it's Toastmasters. I'm like, everyone should be a part of it. Everyone.
Good to know.
So I'm excited to hear about your experience when you make it.
Very cool. So one thing you mentioned is, you're now a keynote speaker, and you still have those anxieties.
Every time.
It's good to know that, that people aren't alone, that when they do have those feelings. So somebody who even does this all the time, that you still feel that way. You just channel it the right way, like you said.
Absolutely. And you know what, to be honest, Trent, if that feeling ever went away, I'd wonder, why am I doing it? I don't know if I would get the same value from it. Because if I'm not nervous, I just want to know why. Does that mean I'm getting complacent? Does it mean I'm getting lazy? Does it mean I just don't care anymore? I'd be worried about it, because, let's be honest, we got a lot of fear in us. It's all about survival, right? At least we don't have tigers chasing us anymore, and we don't have the weather to worry about. We've been able to do, as Maslow says, get some of the basic needs taken care of, so we can start to, evolve and become more self-actualized eventually. And Toastmasters is definitely a vehicle that's challenged some of my habits that I felt were holding me back, and were a lot of fear dominated a lot of them. So it's great. Yeah, it's really good. I encourage everyone, challenge your fears. There's only three main fears that pretty much every fear stems from. Fear of success, fear of failure, and then fear of change. Right? Think about it; those are pretty much all encompassing. And it's like surfing, right? Surfers know that you don't go out there and just catch one wave. No, waves come in sets. And I always tell people, so does fear. It's like you deal with one and then another one pops up, and then another one pops up. But for anyone that's ever surfed, how do you get through the wave? Well, it's not a matter of going through it. It's sometimes going under it. You dive to go under, and then you come up the other side, and it's like way easier than letting the wave carry you and beat you up.
Right.
So, but if you turn and run away from a wave, oh man, watch out, because you are going to get smoked.
Yep.
So sometimes you just got to say, okay, head first, go at it, dive under, come up, take a breath, deal with the next one, surfing has humbled me a lot with my fear. It's been interesting. One of the benefits of living in Bali.
Very cool. Well, the common acronym for fear, when you put it in the positive light, is face everything and rise.
Yes.
So you got to definitely tackle it. And you've definitely faced many challenges, but also made many changes. And you are now, like we've alluded to, you're now based out of Bali. You've moved your entire family out there and totally changed your lifestyle to get away from that corporate world. And tell us a little bit about that change that you made and how that's gone.
Well, to be fair, my family lived here for 2 years. They just relocated back a few months ago to Vancouver, Canada. Reason being is the schooling here. So my kids went to school here in Bali. So there's a lot of international schools, expat schools, but the extracurriculars are a bit more limited for teens.
Okay.
Meaning that my one daughter, she loves sports, but she's also at a point where, her athleticism, she needs good coaching. She needs to be challenged more. And that opportunity wasn't here in Bali for her. And then my other daughter loves to act. She loves improv. She loves to speak. And now she came to Toastmasters with us all the time. From the time she was like 12, she's been coming to Toastmasters with us, even though it's not supposed to. So anybody at Toastmasters.org and Toastmasters there, listen, she's not an actual member, but we gave her opportunity to speak. Yeah, I'll get my hand slapped, but she's my daughter. I'm going to do it anyway. So we've given them opportunities to work on those things. And we always said when we started traveling, if they ever wanted to go back and sort of inject themselves back into school, more traditional school like in North America, we would honor that. And so it got to that point. My one daughter's only got 2 years left of high school. My other daughter, she's got 4 years. Mm-hmm. And so my wife, she was the trooper and said, okay, I'll go back with the kids, get us set up again in Vancouver as another home base. And so they've been there for a number of months, and I've been going back and forth. And cool. As of the new year, I'm going to shift a little bit more. So I'll be back in Vancouver a bit more than I am in Bali, just because it's really hard being away from them. Family is very important to me. And so I'll still be coming to Bali. It's just this, Vancouver will be a home base for me again. After 2.5 years, I'm okay with that. Like it's important to be with my kids right now. So it's crazy. My oldest just had her first formal. She's got a boyfriend now. And I'm like, we've gone a few months. Where did all this come from? So things are changing way too quick and at a pace I can't handle. So I got to get back. So it's like, what
Sounds
is up?
like it.
Yeah. But Bali, we decided on it was just when we decided to go overseas. My wife had been to Bali like 20 years ago when she lived in Australia and always talked highly of it. I've been active in the social space online. I'd always seen people post about Bali and just pop up every once in a while. And especially in the last few years, it's really become a hotbed for digital nomads because it's good Wi-Fi, cheap costs of living, high quality of life, great weather, amazing food, great culture. Like there's just so many benefits to it. Mm-hmm. It's a third world country, but first world amenities. So that I like to qualify all that. So we already had an idea that we wanted to come, and we came and we decided just to rent a place on Airbnb for 3 months, see what it's like. And then we were planning to do more travel. Those 3 months turned to 2.5 years, which is a story. It may sound very unique and very, very nice. It's like the story I hear all the time, all the time. It is not unique at all. It is very common that people come here and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, I could live here. I could do this longer. And so I see this a lot. I hear it a lot. I meet a lot of people that have a similar experience. And so what solidified it though, and really got us excited is we have these aspirations of going around the world to meet different types of people. And when you're in Bali, people from all around the world come. So we have friends everywhere now, like everywhere. 2.5 years of being here. Like we've got Russia, we've got all over the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, Hong Kong, Japan, like everywhere. Because they all come to Bali. And so there's plenty of opportunities to connect with people from around the world. And you already have some similar interests, a passion for travel, usually entrepreneurship. It's just so many people in that space. And so we loved it. We were like, wow, this is great. As much as we wanted to go and see people all around the world, we can just stay here and they'll come to us. It's like, this is awesome. And so we've done lots of travel while in Southeast Asia, but it would be like a week here, 2 weeks there, a weekend away. So it's really easy to travel within Southeast Asia once you're here. Mm-hmm. Like we have friends in Thailand, we have friends in Kuala Lumpur, like in Malaysia. So it's easy enough to get away for these little trips, but Bali was our home base.
Very cool. Yeah, that's very exciting, and you're pretty much convincing me to go to have a conversation with my wife. Let's move to Bali.
Yes, and there's so much stuff for little kids, like for younger kids, like 12 and under. There is so much stuff, so much. It's really they cater to that very much so. But for the teens, it's a little bit less. There's not as much, and if my kids were younger, I don't think they would have been as apt to want to go back.
Okay.
But, I understand the age that they're at. And I remember what it was like to be a teen. And so it makes sense. It's all good. And we're going to honor it. It's all good. Bali's not going anywhere. I'm coming back. So it's all good. It's all good.
Very cool. So because this is the Hustle Today podcast, I want to figure out your definition of the word hustle.
Well, I don't mind the term. It was my only, to be honest, like when Gary Vaynerchuk, like I told you, when I read his first book, he was the guy that really hammered home the idea of, work your 9 to 5, but then you're going to work 6 to 2, you're going to work the other 8 hours on your hustle. I did that for a while. But certain other aspects of my life, let's just put it this way, they suffered a bit, relationships and just even my self-care, looking after myself and doing certain things that I know make me feel good and make me more in alignment with who I want to be. So my idea around hustle at one point was pretty negative. Because that's what I used to understand it as was, your side hustle is just another full-time job that you just do on the side of your full-time job, And I was like, wow, that was, again, 168 hours a week. I need some sleep. I need to eat, need to get to the gym. When am I going to do this?
Right.
But what I've come to understand hustle for me is this idea of channeling your energy toward one result that you're trying to create. But that becomes the focus, the one thing, that you can do. And that by doing that thing, there's a book called The One Thing. And I love that question. What's the one thing that you can do by doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? Mm-hmm. And so when I think about channeling it, the hustle is really just a way to channel that energy towards one result, creating that one thing, that vision that you have as I hope you're painting it. And it is just rock solid. You have a very clear idea of what you're trying to create. And now it's being very, very clear about the parameters to achieve that one thing. Most of us get distracted. We procrastinate. We do lots of things other than the things that we know we ought to be doing to make it happen. And so I know when I'm focused on one thing, or say a new program or a new product or something very, very specific, will I hustle to get that out there and to make a go at it? Yeah, I will. But that's where, 80% of that energy is going to go, during those extra hours that I allocate for that project.
Right.
And all the other little things, no, because I know it just takes away from that. And so for me, that's really what I feel a hustle is. It's really channeling that energy in an amazing way and recognizing what's essential versus non-essential.
Yeah.
To achieve it.
That's very cool. I like that definition a lot because, to some people, they think hustle, they think 24/7 and whatnot, but that's not necessarily the case. And like you said, it's just channeling during that time, channeling all your energy towards that one thing. That's very cool.
Well, and one thing I do with my clients, both the business coaching clients that I work with, but also more on the lifestyle coaching, I just ask people for a week to document what they do. Just document how much time you spend on certain tasks. and when you do that and you actually, a nice exercise is to color code, block out on your calendar based on the task that you were doing, the activity, so then you start, okay, gym time, let's make all those blocks red. Let's do this, let's do that, and when you start to look at the calendar at the end of 7 days, it's kind of like a mosaic, but you're going to see some big patterns, especially on areas where, how many times do we find ourselves saying, oh, I just don't have the time. I can't do that. I'm like, I bet you do.
Yeah.
If you learn to channel this energy a little bit differently and eliminate some of these things that quite frankly aren't serving you at all. And then we take even just half of that. Like you take half of some people's screen time, whether it be Netflix, whether it be YouTube, like just the video content side of things. Just take half of that a day of whatever you do in a day, reallocate that towards your hustle. Holy smokes. Like there, you just found the time to do it now, plus the energy, like it's huge. I mean, the average North American watches 3 hours and 58 minutes of, TV, they call it. This is back in 2017. So obviously the stats changed, but I classify it as videos,
right?
Some sort of video content. That's almost 20% of our life. 20%. I did the math.
Crazy.
I did the math because the average human being lives to be 79 years old. That's about 41 million minutes for those that are carrying. 41 million. Most of us, if we said, hey, would you like $41 million in your bank account? I don't know anybody that would say no.
Right.
I'd be like, okay. Well, we're born with 41 million minutes, on average. Some people live a bit longer, some a little bit longer, but it's a depreciating asset that keeps decreasing.
Yeah.
And yet we don't give it the value that it deserves, and when we start looking at how we're using, or I should say spending the time, not investing it,
it's true.
We have plenty of time to do the things we really want to do in life. And, but again, which is the path that's a lot easier? It is a lot easier to sit on the couch and Netflix and chill. And I'm not against that. Listen, I have my moments too. Man, we got Disney Plus. I love Mandalorian. Dude, that Mandalorian show is like, I will rewatch that. My kids have already said, when you get back here, we got to binge it. And I'm like, I'm in, okay, so I know this, but if there's a pain there, if there's something in you saying, when you're sitting there and you can't truly be present, just enjoy the moment of watching that movie or experiencing that moment, because there's something else nagging at you, deal with that nagging thing. Just turn off the video, go deal with the nagging thing.
Yeah.
Because there's something there. Don't run away from it. Don't ignore it. Don't placate it by just turning on the videos and zoning out. Like, find out what is that.
Yeah.
Deal with it, just deal with it.
That reminds me of a book I just picked up for my kids. It's called What to Do with a Problem. It's a children's book, but it's, when you let a problem just sit there, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you realize you just would have tackled it head on the first time, you realize it's not that big of a deal. So
I love that. It's so good.
Kind of the same thing. You're trying to avoid something by the screen time, but really you're just making it bigger to deal with later. So
that's right. And it's also thinking about it from a regret standpoint. Do people ever say, man, I really regret watching 2 days of Netflix? Yeah. Does anybody regret, I really worked on my dream. I worked on my vision today. I went to the gym today. Like, I really regret that I did that. No, you don't say that. So sit with that, like ask yourself, how am I going to feel after I've done the action?
Mm-hmm.
How will I feel if I don't do the action? Just sit with that. Ask yourself that question. Just really be honest with the answer. You'd be amazed at what comes up. It's usually, people make it really complicated. I'm like, it's not that hard. Like, you just got to choose to do something different. Einstein's got a definition about this, over and over, expecting different results.
Exactly.
It's called insanity. It's like, I think he was a pretty smart dude.
Yeah.
But
I've heard that
learn
before.
from this stuff. We can learn from this. Yeah. Exactly. So, anyways.
Very cool. So I want to dive in a little bit about your whole life manifesto. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I believe in holistic well-being. What I mean by that is, you have to have a plan to strengthen your physical fitness, your mental fitness, your emotional fitness, but especially also your spiritual fitness. When I'm talking about spiritual fitness, I know some people will instinctively just go to religion, and I'm not saying religion. I'm more secular. I think for some people that's great. That's your faith, that's spirituality, amazing. Or just how do you create an impact in this world? How are you making this world a better place? So tomorrow when we leave this, it's better than when we got here. So that's sort of that spiritual connection to things outside of us, to that sense of how we show up in the world and the impact we're making, energy wise, even through our actions. So we need that whole life. to every area is important. It's not one area is more important than the other. They're all connected and they all support each other. And so a number of years ago, after being in the fitness space for over 20 years, I'd encountered a lot of mindsets, but a lot of excuses and a lot of reasons why people either don't feel empowered to make the changes that they want to make. A lot of people would say, well, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I don't even know why this is important. Like really just completely disconnected.
Yeah.
And so I started creating challenges online. I created a free community in Vancouver called the Sunday Fun Day community, but in a positive one. It was all health-based. Now, some people hear that, especially the Aussies. Sunday Fun Day, it's like you sit on the beach and you drink a lot of beer. Well, no. Okay, this is different. This is a healthy Sunday Fun Day. And what would happen is people would come and my wife and I would coach them for free. We would run fitness classes. And we would often talk a lot about mindset and spirituality and just really this ability to channel your own energy to create the result you want in your life. And we facilitate a lot of this through physical fitness, because we know that once you physically start to feel better, you start to think a little bit differently. You start to just show up a little bit differently. You start to make better decisions. It's just a really simple way to make a big impact with the least amount of time. And so we love that. And I learned a lot after doing that for about 5 years and helping thousands of people through these free classes. I learned a few things. And so I took a lot of my, exactly. Right. It was like, I used to tell people like, man, you do this for free. And I'm like, yeah, but I get a lot out of this, and we do, because for us, that was part of what we wanted to do. We wanted to create an impact. We wanted to inspire and help and motivate and support people to make the changes. And through that experience, I learned a lot. And I wrote a book called The Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. And in that book, it shows people how to leverage 30 minutes a day. So 2% of every 24 hours, only 2% of your day for body, mind, and spirit. So it's about moving your body with purpose, to elevate the heart rate, get a little bit of a sweat. You're moving with intention of improving your physical fitness. 15 minutes a day, 5 minutes of mindful meditation, right? And 10 minutes of personal development. So it's 30 minutes a day that you carve out for yourself first. It's a non-negotiable. You do it for 28 days straight, and it's amazing to see what happens. Like it just is. It's amazing. Like I see these shifts in people because all of a sudden the belief in them grows up. A lot of people ask me, well, do all I have to do is 30 minutes? I'm like, no, but it's the least you're worth. Like you got to feel that. Mm-hmm. Like you have to feel that you're worth 30 minutes a day to improve your body, your mind, and your spirit. Because if you don't believe that, who will?
Right.
And so I tell people it's sort of the gateway lifestyle program. It just gets them started, toe in the water, and we give them everything. Everything's included. It's all there in the book. I even give it away for free on my website. It's like, hey, do you want this? Like, are you prepared to commit to 28 days? Here's the link. Sign up. My wife and I do a video with you in your living room. You just play the video. We do the 15-minute workout with you. We even prompt the 5 minutes mindful meditation. Like I don't want people to have any excuses. I'm like, I'm going to deal with it all. And they're like, well, how much does it cost? Okay, it's free. Oh, okay. Well, that's not an issue anymore because a lot of people use money as an issue.
Right.
Like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, here you go. I don't know how to do it. Oh, here you go. Well, why should I be doing it? Well, here you go. And it's a lot of questions and inviting people to introspect and write down what are the changes that they want to experience. Mm-hmm. And how do they want to start showing up? Who do you want to be? Creating the vision. I mean, It's amazing when you have clarity of vision, everything else just seems a lot clearer. Right. It's like, oh, you know what? This decision, this action that I want to do, this really doesn't align with what I really want.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll do that. Great. There you go. You're empowered now to make some choices that you want to make, not feel like they're just circumstances that are outside of your control. Right.
Right.
So, anyways, that's it. That's all. And I talk a lot about this stuff, but the book really focuses in on that. And you can find it at Barnes & Noble and Amazon and the usual usual places, or you can just sign up for free online and get it that way too, digitally. But I always like to say, hey, you want to buy the book? Awesome. But if you don't, it's okay. I don't want that to be an excuse why you can't get healthy and well. So really look at building a foundation for your life on health first. You know, if you get your health right, you can build anything you want.
Yeah.
Anything. Yeah. You know, it's remarkable.
Well, our bodies are tuned into each other. So when you get your body right, your mind gets right too. So
it does. I mean, it's awesome. And it's amazing how the spirit follows as well, right? Like this energy, this passion, this idea of why we're here changes as well. We start to feel connected with the things that we do and how we show up in the world around us. Joseph Campbell wrote The Hero's Journey. He created The Hero's Journey, but it was in the book Power of Myth. And if you've ever seen Star Wars, George Lucas was inspired by his work, and that's how he came up with the Star Wars series. It was literally inspired by Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. And what's really neat is he talks about following our bliss, you know. And this idea of following our bliss is just choosing the path in our lives that allow us to maximize our sense of joy, fulfillment, and purpose. You know, but taking action, being purposefully decided on the path that we're going to follow or walk or things that we're going to do, if it's going to allow the opportunity to increase that. And it's pretty cool when you start to look at that, you know, because on this hero's journey that we're all on, we all get called to change. We all get called to adventure. We were all facing challenges. Every one of us at some point in our life do. And then we face the challenge. And no matter what, you come out of that challenge changed.
Sure.
What do you do after the change? A lot of times people feel called to now come back to wherever they started, or to come back to those around them and share what they've experienced and help others now deal with it as well. You look at every amazing entrepreneur, they've recognized a challenge that they usually have personally dealt with. And what do? They dealt with the challenge, and now they've come back feeling inspired to help others deal with that same challenge. And they've created businesses on this.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty neat to see this plays out over and over again. You know, Joseph Campbell talks about stories from 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 years ago, all the way up to present day, and he shows the similarities of these similar stories happening over and over again, not only in story, but in our lives. It's really neat. I love it.
It's very cool. Yeah, I appreciate that you're sharing that with people for free and eliminating those excuses, because I'm personally have been a victim of excuses too, where it's like, oh, if then, you know, if I do this, then this will happen, you know. But it's something I've been able to call myself out on more recently, and so I like that you're eliminating those excuses so people can understand what they are truly capable of.
Right on. Love it.
So what's one thing somebody starting a business today should be doing?
Well, I don't want to just should on everybody's head, but I know shoulditis can sometimes be frustrating for people. But what I would like to do is invite you to really look at what you truly want. You know, like get an idea. The vision is very important. Having a vision for what it is you want or the life you want is so important, because once you have clarity of vision, a clarity of the life that you're living into, your decisions on a day-to-day become clearer. You gain a lot more confidence in doing the actions, you know, and making the choices. I find that that's something that we like to skip over. We like to get right to work. We like to start just creating stuff. And it's like, well, we then have to wonder why at some point in time do people get very discouraged and quit. You know, they stop chasing what they believe that they wanted before. And so, you know, getting clear on the vision and it's a nice first step. And when it comes to actual entrepreneurship, I believe that you have to, I find the people that are most in tune with themselves, like they have a daily practice that involves self-care, they authentically just have so much more energy to give, which sounds counterintuitive, you know, because you're saying if I take more energy for myself, you know, especially if I pay myself first before I pay others with my energy, I'm actually going to get more in return. And it's so true, you know, and it's this idea of also giving back, right? And knowing how do we want to make an impact on the world. And I find that people that have a regular practice that focuses on themselves first, and, you know, really focuses on their body, their mind and spirit, what are different ways that they can improve on that, it allows them to really be decisive in the actions that they take to create what they want. You know, obviously I could talk about the branding, I can talk about marketing, I can talk about systems and operations. Like, yeah, this is all important stuff. But if you don't have the entrepreneurial mindset in place before you go down the path of doing all the things that is involved in running a business, it's really going to be challenging to sustain it. So, you know, and I see this over and over again, and it pains me, right? Because I see a lot of people that have tremendous passion, an amazing ability to make an impact, to help people. But then they get to a point and we hear the word burnout all the time. Mm-hmm. People give it that label, and it's not just burnout. I mean, it's life out, you know, like passion out. Like it is, you hit a wall and you don't feel like you can ever get around it or through it or over it. Like you just feel stuck and helpless at times. And it's an awful place to be. And it's funny when people get there, I'm like, well, don't focus on the business right now. Oh, I have to focus on the business. I'm like, no, you got to focus on you. You know, like, when was the last time you just went for a walk on the beach? Oh man, I don't know. It's been a long time. I'm like, dude, you live in Bali. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like it's like, when was the last time you went for a walk in your local park? You know, how much water did you drink in a day? What's your sleep like? You know, what are you doing to deal with the stress in your life? And all of a sudden, it's amazing. They're like, they treat the business much better than they treat themselves. And I'm like, well, this is not a sustainable business model. You know, this is, do you think this might be where some of these problems are stemming from? Oh, I don't know. I never thought about that. I'm like, okay, can you give me 1 week? Give me 1 week. Just do this for a week. You know, for that. And I get people walking 10,000 steps a day, drinking at least 3 liters of water a day, at least 5 minutes of mindful meditation and 10 minutes of journaling. Just doing those 4 little things, and you commit to that for 7 days in a row, tell me your life hasn't shifted a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, it's amazing when we reset that. And I could talk about the physiology of this, of what is stress, what is anxiety, you know, and when we look at cortisol levels in the body and how it increases inflammation and all the health complications that come from increased inflammation, it's just like, wow. Yeah. All this data is out there. Like, if you are someone that's more in your head than your heart, you're more analytical, right? Trust me, there's enough data points out there to validate what I'm talking about, to prove the point. But the thing I care about the most is, how are you going to feel when you take action to improve your life? You know, how are you going to feel? How are you going to show up? And how will that affect others around you? You watch. Just by you looking after you, everybody else changes. Pretty neat, you know, and it's very cool. Really, and it's not hard. Again, this is crazy, right? That's the crazy part. It's so accessible, and it's yet some people feel it's out of reach, but it's not. It's just that you're sitting a little further away than you should be. You know, just get up and go towards it, you know, and it's there. It's all there. And so that's really it. The entrepreneurial mindset, I think, is a great place to begin. Absolutely. And I actually have a 30-minute video that I can send you a link on, that you can share with people. Yeah. That's all about the entrepreneurial mindset. That'd and one of the best ways to channel it and optimize it. And so I can send you that. It's a fun little video, just a presentation that I do. And I know it helps people make some little teeny tweaks, which ultimately helps their business, you know, and everything else too. So I don't know if that was an answer that worked for you, but you know, I like talking about all the other stuff, but I find we're all different entrepreneurs. We have different things going on in our business. It's not necessarily univers's. Where the mindset piece,
it's all universal. Yeah.
It is, man. Everybody. That applies to everybody. Like you are not, no one's getting out of that one, you know? So that's it.
Very true. And whether it was a good answer for me or not, doesn't matter. That's your answer. However, I do agree with it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I definitely do agree with that, because I mean, there's so many challenges that are going to come your way. If you don't have that right mindset, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to overcome them. And once you get that right, it's a lot easier to take on those challenges. So
absolutely.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to be cognizant of your time, and I really appreciate all that you've provided for me. But I want to give you a chance to shout out anyone in particular, or where people can find more info about you.
Hey, Christy. Hey, Chardonnay. Hey, Bree. Those are the ladies of my life. I got to give them a shout out.
Of course.
And hey, Mom. It's yeah. You'll notice that my daughter's names are Chardonnay and Bree. Wine and cheese.
There you
just
go.
to give you an idea of where my issues came from, right? It's,
well, if you want to dive into my problems, all my kids are named after Lotus cars, and so.
No way! Are you serious?
Yes.
That is cool. I love that. So, what are they?
Evora, as in the Lotus Evora. Elise, as in Lotus Elise, and then. The founder of Lotus Cars, his name is Colin Chapman, and so my son is named Colin.
Oh my gosh. Have you written Lotus? I would think some free cars are in order.
I have not written them, no.
I think it's about time.
Yeah.
Maybe someone has to start tweeting them. I don't know. But that is really cool. Oh, cool. Yeah, I always joke our kids are socialites in the making, and that's all our fault. So, as far as shoutouts, my website's probably the easiest way for people to get content. I've got about 1,500 articles on it since I started blogging about 12 years ago. It's all lifestyle based, so fitness, nutrition, mindset. There's a lot of content on there. I know that. And it is going through some upgrades right now, so bear with me. The search bar works great, though, to find stuff. But there's also some free programs there, including the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. So check that out. If you're looking to make some shifts and you just want some inspiration and some guidance, no problem. And then lastly, I'm really active on social, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram. Dai Manuel, just my name. That's the cool thing about actually having a unique name.
True.
Is nobody else had it, and it made all the social profiles on any network really easy to get. So you just have to figure out how to spell it and say it, and once you got that, you won't forget it. I know it because it's just such a weird name. But and Dai's Welsh for David, and people might be wondering, whoa, what does that name mean? Well, Dai is a Welsh term for David. Like David. It's like if you were in Wales, they have a very elongated vowels a lot of the times, and I can't read any of that stuff. But my great grandparents were from Wales, but I'm Canadian, so that's all you got to remember. North of the border, and someone who likes the weather in Bali, though.
Yeah,
a lot more
understandable.
Than the rain and snow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I again appreciate your time. It's been a huge value to me, and so I know it's a huge value to my listeners and viewers, and so thank you again, Dai. And for all those that are listening, I want you to get out there and hustle the day.
Woo!
Thanks for listening to the Hustle the Day podcast all the way through. I really appreciate that. I just want to let you know that I help small businesses with their online strategy. So if you or anyone that you know needs help with their online strategy and owns a small business, I'm your guy. Go ahead and connect with me at Trent V. Bray on Instagram or TrentVBray.com.